Good afternoon. My name is John Smiciklas. I'm the U4SSC Verifier, and I want to do a quick presentation here on the key performance indicators that we've been speaking about. I have been the one who's gone to all the cities that you saw get their certificates. I was the person who went to see them and acted as a project manager in developing the content for the key performance indicators. So we'll give you a little, is it the wrong way? Sorry, it's down, not up. So what we're going to look at really is give you an overview of the U4SSC very quickly. You've probably seen them all. Go through the key performance indicators at a high level. Talk about Dubai, Singapore, and other cities, and as, of course, we all want everybody to become more involved with the U4SSC. So I don't think we need to actually go through this really anymore. I think we all pretty much know this. The U4SSC is this organization with 16 UN agencies, ITU and UNEC and UN Habitat acting as the sort of the leads on it. And I think we've actually seen a few of these presented already. These are just some of the publications. There's many more publications. I know we've introduced some this week as well. The goal really is to show people how the cities can become sustainable and smarter and more sustainable. So some of the current work, I think this has probably also been reviewed. This is the problem with going last. So this is some of the things that we've looked at. I don't want to go through them all, but artificial intelligence and data processing and IoT, et cetera, for smarter and more sustainable cities. So I do want to kind of go through what we call the collection methodology for the key performance indicators. This is the document. This is a link to the document, and please follow that if you want to. So sort of an overall map of some of the cities that have implemented this. There's currently over about 100 with various UN agencies, ITU, UNEC, UNDP, et cetera. And so let me really sort of get into what the KPIs are. So the indicators were developed really to provide this sort of baseline of data collection. So what data should cities collect? How do they relate to the Sustainable Development Goals? How do they show them how they become smarter, how they become more sustainable? A method, if they collect it over time, of showing how they're progressing to things, how they compare to other cities. We've developed some benchmarks as well and standards that give them some idea on their current progress. Some of the principles we used when we developed these, the KPIs should be comprehensive, so they should give you this really holistic look of a city. The data should be available to cities. So this is really the third version, and the first version we found that even a city such as Dubai, they were not able to collect about half of the KPIs. So then we went back and got feedback and back and forth, and so we came up with KPIs that cities could actually collect, so that in the current version, cities are collecting between 90 and 100% of the data for the KPIs. They should be fairly simple. The concept should be simple. And what we call timeliness, so that we could also update the KPIs and look at new issues as they're coming out. So this is the overall structure. We have 54 what we call core indicators, which we believe give that basic idea of what a city should be. 37 advanced indicators, not advanced in that they're only for advanced cities, but advanced in that certain cities probably will have nothing to report on them at the current time, but some cities might have that. We divided them into smart, structural, and sustainable. Multiple data collection points on under 3 dimensions: economy, environment, and society and culture. This gives you an idea of sort of the subdimensions and categories, because we further subdivided them, so people could look at each of these categories. We also developed benchmarks within each of these categories, so we give a visual representation. So this is an example of how we put together the KPIs. This one is for traffic fatalities. So with each KPI, we have a description and the categorization of the KPI. This is a core indicator. It's what we call structural. It's under safety, housing, and social inclusion, and it's a safety indicator. The rationale why we did it, in this case, road traffic injuries is responsible for about 1.2 million deaths a year. I think if somebody actually looked at that and said, this is worse than any war, why shouldn't we do something about it? Where we find the information, where people can find information. Obviously, how to calculate it. One of the most important things we want to do is if I collect it, how do I actually report this? And some various data sources. So where people might actually find the data in the city, potentially some international databases, and we give a reference, and in this case, it is a direct relationship to one of the SDG indicators, the death rate due to road traffic injuries. So what do we see as the advantages? So this is an international standard. It's based on an international standard. It has the support of 16 UN agencies. We believe it allows for this general initial screening of a city. With the benchmarks and the reporting, we hope cities are developing better strategies. They know where to focus. And over time, it should help cities sort of localize the SDGs, which helps nations achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So how did we sort of implement this program? How do we ask cities to implement the program? We asked them to sort of make this sort of initial commitment. We've developed various templates for data collection and reporting. Cities then would look at it and identify where those data sources are. So one of the key things that we found as we've gone through cities is that they understand that they have to now speak to the local utility, the police force, maybe the national government, Central Statistics Bureau. There's a lot of places they actually have to go to find the data. So they should identify that. There's that data collection. There's a process of verification of that data, and then we have the reporting and the benchmarks. As we say, as somebody who's been in sort of the quality management, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So we just want to quickly go through, let's say, Dubai, the case study we did. Dubai was the first city to pilot test the KPIs. It was based on the first iteration of the ITU recommendation. They provided significant feedback to improve the KPIs. And so we'll give you some idea. There is a report, which you can download as well. And the second city that we actually did was Singapore. And again, there is a case study on Singapore that's available. And this just gives you sort of an idea of the first iteration, how they were able to collect, currently 87% of the KPIs. Even a city of Singapore's quality wasn't able to collect 100%. But again, that fed back into the process, and we improved the KPIs the second time, and they were able to report more the second visit that we made. And so this gives you an idea of sort of the reporting that we're starting to do. Can't remember which city this is. But now we have cities reporting, approximately on the bottom here, 98% of the KPIs they are reporting. Almost all of them are verifiable. In this case, every single KPI they did with a backup data, the data was actually verified. This is our new sort of visual benchmarking tool that we've developed. The cities kind of really like this because it focuses them areas on, for instance, innovation in transport. There's a lot of sort of, what do you call it, red areas. And so when the cities see this, they focus in on saying those are the areas that we might need to have improvement on. The targets really are based on either sort of performance of leading cities globally or to meet the SDG at 100% of its target. We also provide what we call a little snapshot report. In this case, what we do is we look at the sort of the dimensions and subdimensions. So again, for this city, you know, an ICT infrastructure is quite good, but they may have a little work to do under infrastructure and productivity. As we go through what we call our fact sheet report, we provide a little bit more sort of visual cues to the city, as well as policy recommendations. So in this case, we're saying things such as the Gini coefficient is quite good, so income inequality is quite low in this city. However, the gender income equity, which is the wages of the typical male to the typical female worker, is actually not quite in good balance here. Housing expenditure, very good. Informal settlements or slums would be considered actually also quite good. So those are some of the reports that we come out. We were trying to make the reports much more visual. We found that, I think if for anybody here during the presentation by Puyi, as you get more visual, cities tend to understand a little easier. So how to get involved? Well, of course, we have a number of these experts, call for experts. I think a lot of people have, we've mentioned this many, many times, so I won't repeat it over and over again. And again, some of the cities that have gone through the program, we're again asking cities globally to become part of the U4SSC network, to implement the KPIs, to implement the verification process, and also to provide feedback so that we can improve the KPIs. So that's my quick presentation. We'll take any questions now. Thank you.